Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming at you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central here in Kent, Ohio, with another story made just for you. As a matter of fact, we're going into some personal history up in here today, all about the father of Black history. We call it From the Book of Crosby. So pay attention now, because we're going to be going through Dr. Crosby's early life before he created the month of Black history celebrations that has been going on since 1970. So for over the past 50 years, these celebrations have been going on, and he inspired them with the programming that we did right here at Kent State University. So we are in Kent, Ohio, the birthplace of Black History Month, and this is all about Black history, not for a month, but for a lifetime. That's right, because we've had a lifetime of strife time, and it's about time we overcome a whole lot of this madness. But we can only do that if we actually know the facts. If we don't know the facts, then it's difficult for us to relax, because we're always going to be working on false premises, and we want to get it right to the max with the facts. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and do the needful. First things first, you need to go ahead and subscribe to the Tubular Black Facts channel. If you haven't done that already, please go ahead and do that. Next up, we're going to read some words of wisdom from the mind of Dr. Crosby himself. Now, these are cultural tropes, so you might have heard some of these tropes before. Don't be surprised if they sound quite familiar, because they are out there in the culture. They're not just his, they're ours. So the one we have for today is, nothing beats a try but a failure. Nothing beats a try but a failure. Now, he always liked to say that, and I always felt that was something that was just timeless. Timeless. It's almost rhymeless, but it's definitely timeless. Meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and read from his auto bio, and we've got a slideshow we're going to accompany it as well. So here you go. We've got images of the Crosbys, not just Dr. Crosby and Mrs. Crosby, but the whole doggone Crosby clan. So check it out while we go ahead and weave this story. And here we go. There she blow. Let's see if we're going to get this clear here in a minute. It's taking its own sweet time. Don't look like it wants to clear up for me. Is it going to do that or not? Come on. Oh, I hate when it does this. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, and other times I just feel like this computer has got things dead set against me, because there it goes. Finally did what I want to do. All right, so we'll go black. All right, here we go. Now we're ready. So Dr. and Mrs. Crosby took a journey down south, and this journey took place over a period of about 2 years, when they lived in Tuskegee Institute, Alabama. Quite a distinct place from Tuskegee, Alabama, because everything segregated at the time was segregated at the time down there. So you had Tuskegee Institute, Alabama, which is where the black folks lived, and then you had Tuskegee, Alabama, where the white folks lived. Yeah, ain't that something? Had to segregate the whole daggone town. But here we go, at any rate. Um, at the Tuskegee Institute, they had developed an active class culture. This culture, it seemed, had originated back when Booker T. Washington was alive and dominant. Dr. Walker and his wife, despite his quirks, were highly regarded members of Tuskegee's supposed upper crust, which proceeded from the fact Mrs. Walker was the sister of Dr. Rufus Early Clement, president of Atlanta University. In 1937, Dr. Rufus E. Clement became president of the Atlanta University system, which included Spelman. It included Spelman College. It included Morehouse College, and of course, Atlanta University. He became the longest serving president of Atlanta University, serving from 1937 to 1957, and from 1966 to 1967. Dr. Clement was the author of many articles on African American history, politics, education. When Dr. Clement was elected to the Atlanta Board of Education in 1953, he became the first African American elected to public office in Atlanta since Reconstruction. The Walkers held soirees in their backyard. We call it a backyard in Cleveland, among the underclass, where recently published books or Broadway plays were discussed, items they or others may have read or seen, such as Ossie Davis's Pearly Victorious, which had opened recently on Broadway in 1961. The play was Ossie Davis's latest play, and it was made into a film in 1963 called Gone Are the Days. If you want to catch it on YouTube, check it out. And it included all of the original Broadway cast, including Ruby Dee, Alan Alda, B. Richards, and Godfrey Cambridge. Another example of Tuskegee's haute couture, in other words, Negro riche, high culture, a social attitude often displayed by black people who have gained, in reality, a small portion of respect and who now imitate their illusory, fallacious conception of white society. It was this nose in the air attitude my wife and I found embedded in many at Tuskegee. For example, I had the opportunity to witness this when I and other faculty in the English and Languages department were invited to dinner at the home of a faculty member whose husband happened to be the chief radiologist at Tuskegee Veterans Administration Hospital. They lived on Bibb Street, where Tuskegee Institute's hoity-toity dwelled. When I arrived, a young man in a waiter's uniform, red coat, black pants, and white gloves met me at the door and ushered me into the dining room, where I was greeted by other faculty members. The most impressive sight came when a number of young men, also dressed in red, black, and white, began lighting the cigarettes of smokers and bringing drinks or beverages to those who requested them. This display didn't stop there. However, dinner was served soon after everyone had gathered, at which time I noticed in a corner of the dining room another red, black, and white-clad man cutting slices from the two large roasts of beef and ham. I was alone and marveling at this ostentatious spectacle. The other guests took all of this in stride, for they had no doubt attended such pretentious upper-class dining displays previously. When my family and I arrived at Tuskegee Institute in June 1962, we learned the Institute had been rendered a city called Tuskegee Institute, Alabama, still within Macon County, but no longer within the city of Tuskegee, ever since 1957, 6 years before I was hired, and had been referred to as Tuskegee Institute, Alabama, as a consequence of its having been distinctly separated from the city of Tuskegee, Alabama. They'd had its own post office and its own zip code, which was a big deal back then because, zip codes were far and few between since they're based on population. When we got there, Tuskegee Institute was still reeling from the Tuskegee municipal gerrymandering case, which arose as a result of the state of Alabama's redrawing the town of Tuskegee's boundaries to exclude all African Americans, save a few who geographically couldn't be gerrymandered out. Having done so, Tuskegee Institute had become a city unto itself. However, that distinction didn't last very long. Senator Sam Engelhardt, who was also executive director of the White Citizens Council of Alabama, and Tuskegee's mayor, Phil Lightfoot, were disturbed by the large numbers of black citizens who had attempted to and succeeded in registering to vote in the city. Blacks, from laborers to PhDs, had been waiting all day, day after day, week after week, to register to vote. This voting registration activity caused Tuskegee's officials to petition the state of Alabama to introduce a bill that would effectively gerrymander all blacks residing in and around Tuskegee Institute right out of the city, which would prevent them from voting in municipal elections and hold up against any court challenge. This strategy might have been successful had the blacks who were quote-unquote evicted from the city not boycotted all business establishments in the city as they sought redress in federal courts. Their concentrated voter registration drive and the boycott that followed the gerrymander bill was led by Professor Charles Good Gomillion, head of Tuskegee's Political Science Department and founder of the Tuskegee Civic Association. The conflict, Gomillion versus Lightfoot, mayor of Tuskegee, Alabama, that ensued was calmly conducted, something not usually associated with black versus white conflicts in the South during the era of civil rights struggles. Another unusual circumstance was Charles Gomillion's and therefore black Alabamians having won out over Senator Engelhardt, the White Citizen Council, and Mayor Phil Lightfoot in 1960, 2 years before my family and I arrived. Soon after arriving, Shirley and I discovered our furniture and other belongings had not yet arrived. Thankfully, we were informed the Institute had its own guest house called Dorothy Hall. It was a very comfortable facility that also served in its dining room breakfast, lunch, and dinner. On the downside, since Dorothy Hall was not air conditioned and outside temperature was in the 90s daily, we had to open the 2 windows in our room, which invited the mosquitoes in. We learned during the daylight hours, when the temperature was at its highest, the mosquitoes were not pernicious. However, when the sun had set, those bloodthirsty suckers would come looking for you. They'd invade our room through those wide open windows. On our first morning in Dorothy Hall, we assumed the hall offered some, if not all, the amenities that you'd expect at any other hotel. We called down to the desk to order coffee and donuts. These items were quickly delivered. We were so happy with the service, we ordered the same the next day. Again, our order was quickly delivered. That evening, we ate dinner downstairs and decided to let the desk know that we wanted our order of coffee and donuts sent up to our room in the morning. The lady at the desk exclaimed, "Oh, so y'all the people in room 236?" We answered yes and thought no more about it until the next morning when the coffee and donuts didn't show up. Even after we had called down to repeat the order, finally it dawned on us that the desk clerk's exclamation, "Oh, so you are the people in that room," happened because she or another clerk on duty had thought we must be white. Now that they knew we weren't white, there was no longer any need to carry on with that pretense, and we no longer got the service. Those services apparently were reserved for white folks. After 4 or 5 days at Dorothy Hall, our goods finally arrived, and we were able to move into our moderately sized home at 613 Roberts Circle. The home was a standalone solid brick bungalow with 2 bedrooms, a sizable kitchen, a comfortable living room, and a little side veranda. It had everything except air conditioning, which forced us to immediately travel to Montgomery to purchase a relatively large unit that would fit in the kitchen window and cool the entire bungalow. That being accomplished, we settled down to place the carpets we had brought, only to discover the corners throughout the apartment were not squared, and we would have had to cut our carpets to make them fit. Shirley and I settled the situation, deciding not to cut the carpets to fit the room. We said to each other we might not stay in this apartment long, thinking we would look around after we got our bearings and find a better place. We stayed in Roberts Circle for almost a full year before we realized we had not yet received any notices about rent payments. I hurried to the bursar's office to correct this oversight, only to discover the bursar was completely unaware that we were living there. The bursar hadn't made any note of our occupancy, even though we had to go to his office to receive the keys to our bungalow to allow the moving van driver to unload our furniture and our goods. Incidents like these began to mount and caused Shirley and I to become skeptical of the decision we had made to stake out our professional claim in Alabama. We put these incidents to the side and committed ourselves to the work we had come to Tuskegee Institute to accomplish. In my case, to teach German and Spanish, and in hers, to make a comfortable home for us, our son Edward, to make a home for us and our son Michael. When we left the University of Kansas, there were 3 of us. Upon our arrival in Alabama, Shirley was scheduled to deliver our second son, Daryl, in August. Our first item of business after settling into our home was to find a pediatrician at the John Andrews Hospital that was on the Tuskegee Institute campus, a short distance from Roberts Circle. Shirley was pleased to find a hospital and professional pediatric assistant so close. She and I were anxious given Alabama's segregation practices. We remembered Edward Albee's 1959 one-act play, The Death of Bessie Smith, the Empress of the Blues, in which he states inaccurately Bessie had died as a result of being refused admission to a whites-only hospital in Clarksdale, Mississippi. As it turned out, our second son, Daryl M.L. Crosby, was safely born on August 30, 1963, in John A. Andrews Hospital on the historic Tuskegee Institute campus in Tuskegee, Alabama proper. My next move was to find my office and begin checking the campus bookstore to see if my Spanish and German textbooks orders had arrived. I was informed they hadn't, but they should arrive soon. With that assurance, I didn't ask anymore. It was July, and classes didn't begin until September. So there was plenty of time to correct any errors that might occur with these book orders. I didn't hear anything more about these textbook orders until fall semester had started. I met my Spanish classes and encountered no surprises. Those would come later. Meeting these students for the first time was exhilarating, for they all appeared to be ready to learn and were excited over having a new and perhaps a younger instructor. I put stress on the word younger because after listening to their comments, the previous Spanish teacher was much older than I, who at the time had not yet celebrated my 30th birthday. And we're going to break off right there at the bottom of page 81, and we'll pick up where we're leaving off here tomorrow. So that's just we're just trying to give you a taste of what's in store in Dr. Crosby's autobiography. Mind you, it was a massive work, and he did it. It was the last thing he did before he passed on, was to work on this autobiography. But I've fact-checked it based on my own knowledge and experience, and based on my mother's knowledge and experience, as well as a previous series of videotapes that Dr. Crosby did on his life, and found it to be fairly accurate, surprisingly. So for the most part, it's pretty accurate, and we will be seeing if we can get it published and get it out there to you so that you can pick up on what Dr. Crosby has been experiencing, what he experienced over his lifetime in terms of learning, as Langston Hughes liked to say, the ways of white folks. Okay? The ways of white folks. All of us have had some experiences like that, but most of us have not written our experiences down. And that's where this particular document is unique, and that's why we're sharing it, because it's not available currently. So the only way you can get access to it, is right here on your tubular Black Facts channel. This is Doc Ock, and I am signing off, but I will be black tonight at 9 p.m. So look for me then with a great big grin. We'll see what I do, because hopefully I'll have something good for you so you won't have to leave here feeling real blue. We're coming up with a new series for the month. We haven't quite got it all logicked out in our head yet, because we are doing this by the fly, on the fly, doing this by the seat of our pants. Yes, that's right. We're doing this dance by the seat of our pants. Meanwhile, let's just say peace out without a doubt to everybody out there. And we're going to go ahead and go to our extra right about now. We will be black, like I said, tonight. And of course, we'll be black tomorrow. Doc Ock at noon and 9, signing out.